Right, here is a video on Monopoly. I think you'll know most of it from the lesson, but here we go. So the beginning, starting off with barriers to entry, the definition for barriers to entry. Now this is a really important part of a Monopoly because Monopolies couldn't take place without barriers to entry, and all they are things that prevent. I'm going to change my pen, so it looks rubbish. Don't go away. Right, things that prevent firms from entering the market. So there are three main sort of barriers to entry, and I want you to say these in exams because you look clever if you do. Right, the first one is structural ones, to differences in production costs. So that would be things like, you could take example like, I don't know, they might have better machinery and stuff like that, so they might be able to benefit from things like economies of scale. Now the second one, let's write economies of scale first. Right, the second one, strategic barriers. These actual tactics they use to try and stop firms from being able to then enter the market. So this could be things to do with advertising. It could also be to do with things like they could be using like destroyer prices. This is where they set the price really low as soon as anyone tries to enter the market, and then the company goes bust. And then once they've gone bust, they then put their prices back up again. So it could be something like that, and they call that destroyer pricing. And the third one is a nice easy one. These are legal barriers. These are things like patents. So if someone's got a patent on a product, no one else can copy it, so therefore they've got a barrier to entry there. But just nice easy examples of barriers to entry, like generic ones, are economies of scale. I suppose you could say that's a structural one. Second one would be if you own raw materials. So like for example, if you own a diamond mine and there's no other diamond mines, you can have a monopoly. It could be the simple. Another one would be the costs or the capital costs of starting up. What else would there be? This is a posh. I'm going to say it quickly. There could be vertical integration, and that basically means that if you own the like the beginning part of the production process, so like you own the raw materials, and then you also own the production plant, then you're going to have a monopoly because no one else will be able to have access to the raw materials. It's kind of like what I just said before. Anyway, moving on. And let's see if there's more space. A couple more quickly is branding is a good one. And I suppose you could argue that is with branding I would say that was a strategic one. And what else? Oh, nice, sunk costs. And there we are. Right, there's a few more, but that will basically do it. Right, next bit down are barriers to exit. Right, these are things that stop someone from being able to exit the market or prevent people from exiting the market. And there are three main ones that I've seen. One is if you were to sell your assets. So if you want to exit, you probably want to sell your assets. But the problem might be you might not get much money. So low, I don't know, let's say, no money back. This could be because your machinery could be really specific, so no one else wants that machinery. Secondly, you could see, now this is a good one, redundancy costs. So when you're trying to get out of the market, you might have to make loads of your workers redundant, and you normally have to pay about a certain amount of money to do that. And then this is the one that Lewis said in class. It could be penalty costs of finishing contracts. So you might be in a contract with a firm to keep on supplying them or something like that, and by not doing it, there might be a penalty cost. Anyway, so that's barriers to entry and barriers to exit. Moving on quickly now to key characteristics of a monopoly. What can we say with the monopoly? There is one firm, or one, I wouldn't mind you saying one, and I'm putting a gap here, I might say one dominant firm. There are going to be barriers to entry, as we said before, and that's one of the main reasons why they can make so much money. What else is there going to be with a monopoly? They are like to be price takers. What else? You could talk about efficiency here, but you don't really need to, not yet. And you talk about how efficient they are. You could say, I think to be honest that'll do for the minute. If I think of any more, I'll go back to it. Right, onto the diagram. Fairly easy diagram is, like by now, I think you're all pretty good at it. Now I'm putting revenue and costs every time now. And I'm also putting output. Right, for me, I normally draw that one first, which is the MC line. And I make sure my AC line hits it at its, not very well done, that should hit it at the bottom. It's not the best diagram ever. I'm going to rub that bit out because I'm not having you be not be able to do it. So it should have been like that, where it's hitting the bottom. The MC curve always crosses at the lowest point on the AC curve. Right. Also, I need to do a AR line, average revenue line, and then the marginal revenue line, which is steeper. Whoop, marginal revenue. Okay. So with a monopoly, you know they always produce where MR equals MC. This is where they're maximising their profit. You then dot up from that point, and that'll be their revenue, because that's the AR line, and this will be their cost, because that's the AC line. And that means they're making abnormal profit. Right. This diagram is going to be really useful in a second, and it's to do with efficiency, why it's useful. Right, a monopoly is not efficient in lots of ways, and you need to be able to say this in the exam. First of all, it is not allocatively. I can't spell. How do I spell allocatively? I don't know. Don't go away. Don't go away. Right, there might be an E at the end, there might not. We'll work it out. Okay, so allocatively efficient. Are they allocatively efficient? Now, to be this, they have to be the MC line has to equal price. Now, the price is up here for the monopoly, and I'll just get my little arrow out. Don't go away. Yeah, the price is up here, and this is where the MC line is. So that means it doesn't. So they're not allocatively efficient. And if you looked at a perfect competition diagram, in the long run, you could say they are allocatively efficient. Anyway, secondly, they're not productively efficient. Right, and this is why they're not productively efficient. To be productively efficient, you have to be producing right at the bottom of the AC curve. Now, my diagram's not very good, but you can see they're producing slightly higher costs than the bottom of the AC curve, which means they're not productively efficient. So this is when, to be productively efficient, you have to be at the lowest point of AC. Okay, on to the next one. Now this one you can't really see from the diagram, but it's still important to say. The monopoly suffers from X inefficiency. What's it? If inefficient for some reason, I can't spell. It's ridiculous. Okay, so anyway, X inefficiency. This is basically where there's not enough competition in the market, and without this competition, firms allow their fixed costs to rise. So that's basically it. Without any competition, they've got no reason to keep their costs down, so their fixed costs start to rise, and that's X inefficiency. Now, the only positive from monopolies, you could say that they have dynamic efficiency. Right, and this is saying this sort of efficiency happens over a period of time. Now, randomly, there's been a thing that's suddenly appeared on the page, so let me delete that first of all. Right, dynamic efficiency happens over a period of time, and this would be, for example, a monopoly, because they've got no competition. They can innovate without any fear of things going wrong, and they can spend money on things like research and development. So the idea is actually a monopoly is able to be dynamically efficient, which means they actually can produce things better. So that's like kind of the counter argument about efficiency. Right, moving on. We're going to go monopoly is good because, monopoly is bad because. So, why is a monopoly good? Well, you know what, I find it easier if we go to why monopoly is bad, because this is a bit where, I don't know what I'm doing over here, don't go away, I'll get rid of that. There we are. So, this one, if this question comes, there's loads of stuff you can say. So monopoly is bad because, right, first of all, you could talk about efficiencies. And then you can talk about all those efficiencies I've just talked about, and you can say, using that diagram over here, using this diagram over here, you can say, look, it's not efficient because it's not being productively efficient because it's not down by here, and it's also not being allocatively efficient because the MC is well below the price. Okay, so you could also draw the diagram if you wanted, showing why it's not being X inefficient, and that diagram also why it's being X inefficient. To be honest, you don't really need. This thing's appeared again, what's it? Yeah, to be honest, don't worry about the diagram too much for the X inefficiency one. It's just an AC curve below another AC curve. But let's not worry about that for the minute. Anyway, so far we've said monopolies are bad because of efficiencies. It's not efficient. Why can't I spell efficiencies? But anyway, moving on. The second thing you can say is the price will be higher. And I like that one because you can then do that diagram, and I'll do it now, which is a dead weight loss diagram. So we've got revenue / costs and output. Now this is where the diagram gets a bit weird. You just have a straight line, which is going to be the MC curve and the AC curve, and then you've just got the AR here and the MR here. Right. We know in a monopoly they'll produce where the MR equals the MC, so they'll produce here, and they'll make all of this abnormal profit. Right. But the problem is, where would a perfect competition person or company produce? They produce at this point here, because you can basically pretend this is the supply line and this is the demand line, and they always produce it as a whole market where supply equals demand. So with this higher price in the monopoly, you can say they're able to make this abnormal profit. You can say, if you want to, Mr. Thompson likes saying this bit, where up here there'll be a reduction in consumer surplus. I think he's got an even posher way of saying it, but I can't remember it. And then finally you can say there'll be over here some dead weight loss. And this is basically, these are all the people who would have wanted to buy the product, but now the price is higher, they can't get it. Okay, so we've got there two really good reasons why monopolies are bad. Because they're not efficient, and we've said those things, and because the price will be higher, and that diagram, the dead weight loss diagram, will show that. Okay, why are monopolies good? Now there's a few things you can say with monopolies being good. You can say that they might be dynamically efficiency, or dynamically efficient. You can also say about monopoly they might be able to benefit from economies of scale. Another possible benefit for a monopoly is that because they're so large, they'll be able to compete abroad. And you could say that could have a useful thing, and you could almost make that into a macro point, and talk about how actually that could mean it's good for our economy, more jobs and things like that. Because the reason why they can compete abroad is because they're big enough to be able to compete with economies of scale. And then you can also talk about natural monopolies, and this is where it makes sense for there to be a monopoly. So for example, it wouldn't really make sense to have like two train lines next to each other. It would make more sense for there just to be one. Right. I'm going to make this small at the top, and then I'm just going to do the price discrimination diagrams quickly. Now, Sophie in the lesson was right in saying that you'd be worried about this taking too long in the exam, so I'm going to try and show you this as quick as I can. I think you have to label every diagram, so I'd be right calling this revenue / costs, but I think I'd write revenue / costs, I would, but I don't want to write now. So this would be output, output, output. Okay, so you start off on the right, and you just do your normal monopoly diagram. So you've got the MC, the AC, AR, and MR. Right, I'll get some different colours out. I dot up to here because the MR equals the MC, and that's where they'll produce. And you dot across all the diagrams of that one, and then in all of them that's an MC line. That's an MC again. Right, I'll dot up again to find their costs, and then I'll go across from there again to make the average cost line for all of them, because you'll need those lines later. And I'll keep on dotting up and I'll be able to see the abnormal profit this firm's going to be making. But with price discrimination, this is that thing where the firm can actually make more profits by price discriminating. So on this one, I'm going to have a elastic. Oh, that's not very good. All right. All right. God, let me delete it. I can't seem to rub out that line. Let's see whether it doesn't matter. I don't think it will matter. So we've got our AR line and the MR line. Right, we know this firm's going to produce where MR equals MC. So if I dot it from there, oh, it's going to work fine actually. They'll be making this much profit. This is out of their the elastic demand line. Then you go to another one, and this has now got inelastic MR and AR. So they can produce where MR equals MC here. It's going to dot up. It's not a perfect diagram, but it'll do. And they'll be making this much profit. So the idea is this much profit A here, plus the amount of profit they get from this elastic group will be more than the profit they would have got, sorry, not equals, be more than the profit they would have got if they didn't price discriminate. So, price discrimination, the idea is there's 4 things that need to be in place for you to actually be able to price discriminate. Right, firstly, you need to be able to group your customers into different groups, and each group has to have different elasticities of demand. If they haven't got different elasticities of demand, then there's absolutely no point. I'll give you an example of this, is people who want to get on the train in the morning who are going to go to work. They've got very inelastic demand. They really need to go, so they'll pay more. Whereas someone else who's maybe just going to, say, London for the weekend, but they're not in any stress about what time they go. They've got much more elastic demand. So the key is you've got to get these 2 people into different groups, and once you've got into different groups, you need to make sure they've got different elasticities, and then it's worthwhile doing. The next bit is you've got to prevent seepage. And that's basically saying, that's probably not how you spell seepage. Anyway, that's saying that you have to be able to stop one group from being able to take advantage of the other group's cheap price. So for example, if I went to the cinema, as I often do, and when I do, oh god, what the hell is this? Right, yeah, and if I went to the cinema, and I was able to get in there using pretend I was an old person, then that would be seepage. So they need to prevent it in some way. And what they do is they normally have like old people's cards or like young traveller cards, right? And the last thing they need to do, they need to be price makers. So if there's ever a question just on price discrimination, I think this diagram will really help you. Right, that is the end of monopolies. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if it's not.